Well, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's your girl, Coach Dana W. And today we are talking about grief and loss. I know that this is some heavy information to all take in, but this is a part of the job that we've accepted as healing coaches, understanding that we got to take the bad with the good with the ugly, all of that in between mess, remembering that as we take in other people's pain, that we have to remember that we have to take care of ourselves. So our next pillar, we're talking about the cost of caring, because it is a heavy load to hear the stories that we're going to hear, the pain that our clients are experiencing. Yeah, we take in a lot. So today, just want to touch a little bit on grief and loss. I know a lot of us have dealt with that. I lost both of my parents within a 2 year window. My parents were both ill from cancer. It was hard, but I must say that when I lost my mom, that helped me to walk in my purpose. That is one of the reasons why I am the person I am today, because of the pain that I experienced as I watched my mom die on her deathbed. As I watched the ambulance perform CPR on her lifeless body, and I was praying to God that He would save her. And I was disappointed. I will be honest. I was very disappointed when my mom passed away, because to me, God promised that He would heal her. But I didn't understand that there was a divine healing that He was speaking of when it came to my mom. See, my mom had a traumatic childhood, and I began to learn more about her trauma after she passed away from my oldest sister. So to her, going to heaven and being with God was peace. And so, we have to understand, sometimes we want to keep people around when they're in their sickness, they're in their pain, and that might not be what they want. And so that was something I had to do. I had to let my mom go, even when I didn't want to. I wasn't ready to. I'm 39 years old, and both of my parents are gone. And that is hard. That is a hard pill to swallow. So, to those of you who have lost loved ones, whether it's your parents or your children or your best friends or your grandparents, understand that I know it's a hard road to travel, but you are not alone in this. And so today I just want to talk to you all a little bit about grief and loss. I have some videos that I have embedded into this lesson from YouTube, just because I know that it can be a lot, and so I don't want to, just have my voice heard throughout this lesson on grief and loss. So I wanted to mix it up for you all. So I do have a PowerPoint for you that I want to share with you all on today, just about the grief and loss. A lot of this information that I'm sharing with you is from my certification program on advanced grief and loss certification. So I wanted to give that reference out. I did not come up with this information on my own, but I felt like it was something that would be beneficial to you all as you have decided to accept your calling as healers. A lot of you are working with grief support groups. So I thought this would be helpful on this journey together. So I first want to just talk to you. I'm just going to dive right into it. I'm not really going to touch too much on the different stages of grief, but just in case you do not know, let me just share with you all what it is, okay? Because we hear about it a lot. And so the first stage of grief is denial. We deny that our loved ones are dying. I remember being in that stage. I remember when my mom told me she had cancer. The doctor said there was nothing else they could do. And I was denying the fact that my mom was going to die. And I kept believing. And I understand that we have faith sometimes, the faith the size of a mustard seed, that we can move any mountain into the sea. And I did not want to accept when the nurse said that my mom was transitioning to heaven. I kept the faith. I was in denial. There's nothing wrong with keeping the faith. I will say that. But it is a stage of grief. The second stage is anger. We get angry. Lord, was I angry when my mama died? When my dad died, I was so angry. And I was like, Lord, why did you take my parents away from me? Some of us might be angry with God. Some of us might be angry with the individual who passed away, asking, why did you put yourself in that situation? Why didn't you take better care of yourself? Why was you hanging out with the wrong crowd? We get angry. Maybe we are even angry at ourselves, thinking that we could have done more. But there was nothing you could do for this time because we're not God. We don't have a time stamp to put on anybody's life. So if you are blaming yourself for losing your parents or losing your child or losing anybody else that you consider to be a loved one, please stop taking the blame because it's not your fault. It is not your fault. The third step is bargaining, okay? Where you bargain and say, you know what? If you do this, I'll do that. I don't really have a good example of that. I really didn't go through that stage myself. But I know I hit the next stage, which is depression. Depression. Whew. It was a lot of heaviness. And I come from a big family. So, my mom was my best friend. And I mentioned my mom because I was closer to my mom than I was to my dad. But when my mom passed away, my dad stepped up to the plate and he was there for all of us. He was there for all of us. And so I hit a bit of a depressive state during my time of grief. The last stage is acceptance. You accept the fact that they are no longer here anymore. You accept the fact that I can't call my mom. I can't call my dad when I need them. I can't put my mom's name or my dad's name on my children's emergency contact list anymore for the teachers to call when I'm not available, or to call my mom to say, hey, I'm working late. Can you pick my daughter up from school? I had to accept the fact that they are not here anymore. That's our truth. That's just the way it is. But let's talk about the different terminologies when it comes to grief, because, we talk about grief, but I want you to understand that there is a difference between grief, bereavement, and mourning. So the difference between grief is a series of intense physical and psychological responses that occur following a loss. It is a normal adaptive response to a loss. Okay? We grieve the loss of our loved ones, meaning that I'm sad, I'm crying, I have a broken heart. That is normal. It's normal. Bereavement. We hear that a lot when it comes to taking off for work. You might have to take bereavement leave. So this is the period of grief following the death of a loved one. So when you take bereavement, you might get 3 days off from work, or you might say, you know what, I need 30 days off from work because I just can't go. So that is the time period. And then mourning is the period of time during which grief is expressed and possibly the resolution and integration of loss occurred. Okay. So the mourning is the period of time where you are actually expressing this grief. I am in mourning, right? So it's not meant for us to be in mourning forever. That time does have to come to an end. So mourning is regularly the reaction to the loss of a loved person or to the loss of someone abstraction which has taken the place of one, such as one's country, liberty, and idea. The goal is to detach from the deceased. So I know that sounds kind of harsh. Like, why do you want me to detach from the deceased? Because we do not want the deceased to have any control over you, over your emotions, over your mind, over your spirit. I'm not sure if you ever heard of this before, but people worship the dead. because they can't let go. You gotta let go. When you lose a loved one, we don't want the death or the deceased to have power over you. So let's talk about acute grief. So acute grief is the somatic distress in episodes lasting 20 minutes to an hour, including sensations of tightness in the throat, choking, shortness of breath, sighing, emptiness in the abdomen, lack of muscle strength, and intense emotional distress. Like, I mean, you are bawling, crying. You can't move, you can't walk, you're standing in your bedroom. This is that deep depression, right? You go through mixed emotions of feeling guilty at times. You just want to yell and scream. You're cursing people out. You're moved away from your daily routine. This is not healthy grief. Remember, we talked about healthy and unhealthy stress, right? Well, it's the same thing with grief. There is healthy and unhealthy grief. So a lot of times it's hard for us to get over the death of a loved one because of our attachment to them. So I want to share with you the attachment theory of Bowlby, 1907 to 1990, and then also Parkes. So there's 4 stages of mourning. We know the one I just reviewed had 5, but in this theory, there's 4. You go through a moment of numbness, yearning and searching. Oh my God. But you just wish you could touch that person again. You wish you can call that person and see them just one more time. Lord, if you just let me see them and speak to them one more time, your heart just yearns for them. Okay. You become disorganized and you go through despair and having to reorganize your life all over again. This is what the attachment theory is all about. And so there are 6 R's when it comes to the attachment theory. The first one is that you recognize the loss. The second one is that you react to the separation. The third one is that you recollect and re-experience the deceased and the relationship. The fourth one is that you relinquish old attachments. The fifth one is you readjust. And the 6th one is reinvest. So these are the different stages that you go through to be able to detach from the deceased. You're going to recognize that you did lose someone. Like, we're not going to be in denial like that first stage of grief. We recognize it. We grieve over it. Meaning we might cry. We take some time off from work. We make some changes in our life. And then we have to readjust. We got to start over. We got to do some things differently. We got to reinvest in new relationships because it's not meant for you to do this alone. A lot of people hit depressive states and they just want to stay in their bedrooms. They don't want to talk to anyone. They're not answering their phones. But we have to readjust our life to keep moving forward. Okay. So this is Randall's trauma and traumatic stress and major loss. So it says the psychological trauma is an event perceived to be inescapable that confronts a person with actual or threatened death or serious injury, physical or psychological, to the self or another. It brings about 4 sets of effects, each of which dysregulates the person. Such trauma, one, instantly propels your brain and body into survival mode. So you instantly hit the survival mode. What do I need to do? I'm just going to eat a little bit just so I can live. It becomes it gets to the point where you're overwhelmed trying to find different coping strategies and coping abilities. You create significant psychological distress and dysfunction, and it violates your assumptive world. When trauma hits, it can change your life forever. I'll be honest, I changed. When my mom died, I changed. Then when my dad died, I changed some more. I am not the same person I was 3, 4 years ago. I'm different. And it might be some good changes that came along with it. It might be some bad changes that came along with it. I might sometimes have a I don't care attitude because sometimes I feel like I don't have anybody I have to please anymore because both of my parents are gone. Because I would do anything to make my mother and my father happy. But still, I will always remember the morals they taught me, the values they taught me to be a woman of virtue, a woman who keeps her word. So I held on to some things that I was taught, but I was also able to let go of some things. You change, but I want you to change for the better. Again, this whole series, this whole course is about turning your pain into your purpose, not allowing your pain to overcome you and gain victory over you. No, we are victorious because we are winners, and we're going to use this pain to succeed in life and to do the things that we were meant to do. So traumatic bereavement is the state of having suffered the loss of a loved one when grief and mourning over the death is complicated or overpowered by the traumatic stress brought about by its circumstances. So traumatic bereavement is different than the mourning and grief. Like mourning and grief is normal and something common that we all do, but traumatic bereavement is at another level. Trauma is a chronic disruption of connectiveness. Trauma breaks a lot of relationships up. Trauma changes a lot of things in our life. Okay? It changes a lot of things in our life. So there are 6 needs of mourning. You're going to acknowledge the reality of the death. And I want you to remember this when it comes to your clients. If you are still grieving yourself, please use the interventions and the strategies that I'm going to talk about with you all today. Use that for yourself, but also be able to use these same tools with your clients. So you're going to remember the person who died. We don't want to forget them. Even though I said you're going to disconnect from the deceased, I don't want you to just forget about that person. That's not what this is about. You're going to develop a new self-identity. You are who you are. And I know that the person that you are missing and loving and that you lost in your life had a big impact of who you are today, because that's what happened to me. But you got to know who you are for yourself. We're not walking in anyone else's shoes but your own. So you're going to search for meaning, and you receive ongoing support from others. So grief support groups are really good, or healing groups, or a therapist, somebody that you can call on in your time of need. Companion is about being present to another person's pain, which is a companion. It is not about taking away the pain. As healing coaches, we are there to support them and be present, to be a listening ear to them. We cannot carry their pain for them. We cannot take their pain away. We bear witness to the struggles of others. It is not about judging or directing those struggles. It is not our place to say, okay, you've been grieving too long. It's time to stop. It's time to move on, because we can't move on from grief. We can move forward and keep living, but we cannot move on from grief. Most of all, like I always say, you got to show compassion, that compassionate curiosity. It's not about expertise. It's not about how much information you know about grief and loss. It's not about how much information you know about trauma and healing. It's about showing compassion. They want to know that you care about them. They want to know that you care about their healing, that you care about the person that they lost, They want to know that I can talk to this person and tell the good stories, the bad stories, and they're not going to be judgmental, but they're going to be here to support me and listen to me as I go through my moments of grief. That's what being a companion is all about. But we also have to understand that grief is complicated. That there's going to be some times that our bereavement becomes stalled, where we get stuck in one place. Or we talk about the different phases. We go from stage 1 to stage 5 and then stage 3. So we're angry, we're sad, we're in denial, and it might be a repeated cycle for some of us. But the truth is, we keep it moving. We don't get stuck. I talked about feeling angry about the death. Sometimes we feel numb and confused. Sometimes we isolate ourselves from others. We feel physical pain. Yes, we can carry trauma in our bodies when we feel tense and stressed. Our shoulders might feel heavy, feeling like I don't want to live. I'll be honest. There was a period when my mom died. I said, what's the point? What's the point of me living? I felt like I had lost everything, everything. I wasn't suicidal where I wanted to kill myself, but yeah, if something would have happened to me, if I had just so happened to die during that time period, I probably would have been okay. That's what grief does to us. It takes some of the energy and the spirit out of us. And we have to make sure we will restore ourselves. I don't know who you pray to, but for me, praying to God was everything. Reading my Bible was everything because I had to refuel myself. Because if I would have let go, it would have been it for me. I wouldn't be here today if I would have accepted that for my life. But I knew that God had so much in store for me. I knew that there was a work for me to do, the same way I believe that there is a work for you to do. So we're not going to allow grief to kill us. So there's different treatments that we could do for grief. I talked about resiliency before. But we have to do so much more. And so I'm going to skip through some of these slides. I do have the PDFs for you to review on your own, but I do want to talk about some of the strategies, you all, to just be able to help your clients grieve or yourself. Some of them include you helping the bereaved person actualize their loss, help them find meaning in the loss, provide the time to grieve, and to allow for individual differences, understanding that you might not even agree with what this person is saying, but let them vocalize how they feel. In this PowerPoint, you're also going to see different types of interventions. This one's called Loving Kindness Meditation. So when you do this meditation, again, if you're grieving yourself, these are some good exercises for you to do. You are going to just repeat to yourself affirmations. May I be free from inner and outer harm and danger. May I be safe and protected. May I be free of mental suffering or distress. May I be happy. May I be free of physical pain and suffering. May I be healthy and strong. May I be able to live in this world happily, peacefully, joyfully, with ease. Affirmations, that is everything, because we have to change our mindset. In order for us to reach our goals, we got to be in the right state of mind. So meditations like this is a good intervention to help us heal. Some other types of interventions, we have some YouTube videos welcoming what is. And so you can go to the website called Focusing, where you're welcoming the resistance, inviting a felt sense, attending, articulating, resonating, and sensing a stopping point. Then you have the grief river and the question, who am I? Where you're going to write 4 answers to each question. Who was I? Who was I while my loved one was ill? Who am I now? And who do I want to be? There's another intervention where you're writing a letter to yourself, writing from your adulthood to your child self. And you're going to answer the questions. What do you want to tell your child so that you are prepared for your future life, writing from child to teen? What does your child want you to hold on to that could get lost in adolescence, writing from present to the future self? And what are you hoping to change for the future? These are just some questions for you to think about when it comes to understanding yourself and how you adapt to change. Here are some questions if you want to do a self-assessment for yourself or with your clients. It starts out with the first experience of death was when. Make sure that your client is ready for these type of questions because we do want to understand triggers. You first want to make sure your client is ready for healing when it comes to speaking about death, because the last thing you want is to trigger somebody and they are having crying spells because of certain questions that you ask. So you might want to do like a brief assessment to make sure that they are ready for these types of questions. And the last one is the check-in. What did you learn? What were you affirmed in? What are you curious about? Self-care. Please assign homework for your clients to make sure your time away from them, they are continuing the work. Okay. So be aware of your own grief process, identify and integrate resources, and then ask what's your next step. Making sure that they have a plan to move forward. So this is our lesson on grief and loss. I hope you enjoy the videos that I have been able to share with you all on today, and I will see you in our next lesson. Have a good night.